This is a story about an adventure I had one summer going from Israel to Syria, getting arrested in Syria, negotiating my way out, and then illegally crossing the border into Lebanon. A little bit about myself. I was born and bred in Montreal. I studied Middle East Studies at McGill University and decided to go to Israel for a year abroad one summer because I had been accepted into an intensive Arabic language and culture program. The summer I was in Israel, I decided that I'd go to Syria just to go and have a look and see what was what. So this brings us to hack number one of how to get into Syria. First of all, you want to gather your intel. Basically, it's about intel, recon, and planning ahead. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, I had to go from Israel. I took a boat to Cyprus. I got my entry visa to Syria in Cyprus, flew to Turkey, and then in the crowd of Turkish and Syrian businessmen, flew into Damascus. Now, in Damascus, they have sort of siesta time every day from 1 to 4, and that's when all the expats gather at a couple of cafes in downtown Syria, at least they did at the time, and you meet the secret police, and they chat you up, etc. Now, the border between Israel and Syria is a place called the Golan Heights. Now, on the Israeli side, it's pretty much a tourist trap, and everyone goes up there and they take their picture with the Syrian town of Quneitra in the background. I thought it would be really cool to get the reverse picture, and so I went up to Quneitra in Syria. Problem being, Quneitra was abandoned by the Syrians for a number of reasons I can tell you about later. But essentially, the second I took a picture, I got arrested. So I spent about 5 hours in a tin shack, very similar to this, with a couple of ordinary Syrian border patrol. We started chatting in a little bit of my broken Arabic and French, and eventually I negotiated with them to let me go before their commanding officer showed up in exchange for 4 packs of Marlboro Reds and $100 US. In return, they let me go and they let me keep my camera, but they took all the film I had. So hack number 2, always play dumb. Dumb Canadian tourist is a great cover story, and when you can, bribe your way out of trouble, or both if you need to. So I was back in Damascus, very relieved, and hanging out at this cafe I mentioned before. I met a couple of old British hippies that I befriended and who were going to Lebanon and invited me to tag along. I said, sounds great, but I don't have a visa to get into Lebanon. They're like, don't worry about it, it's okay. I was young and dumb and decided, okay, let's see what happens. So we get in the car, we go to the border. They hand the paper to the border officer, and we cross. Now, why did we get across without passports or checking the trunk? Because they were going to run poppy fields for a Syrian general in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, which was given to the general as a reward for good service. So that brings us to hack number 3. You know, whenever there's institutionalized corruption, it's really easy to exploit, and it's a great way to get at whatever you want. Thanks a lot.